if you talk to doctors, if you talk to people, they tell you that every family lost someone or knows someone who died of COVID. So the situation is, first of all, it's catastrophic.
For us to really, truly embody what Black Lives Matter means, for you to humanize me.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. We begin with video provided by Syrian Civil Defense, better known as the White Helmets, a group that will be honored at the Gandhi Peace Award Saturday, November 21st. This is how people are living in Idlib in northwest Syria, a section of the country not under the control of Assad or foreign forces. The Russians and Assad are bombing Idlib again, despite a ceasefire that had been worked out with Turkey. Some say it has nothing to do with Syria, but with a dispute Russia and Turkey are having about countries far to the east, Armenia and Azerbaijan. Nevertheless, people in Idlib are scared.
الله أكبر. استهداف مدينة أريحة. في ريحة دم. ساعدوا.
Now an interview with one of the Gandhi Peace Award honorees from Chicago, Dr. Zaher Sahloul. I'll be speaking with Dr. Zaher Sahloul. He's a pulmonary and critical care specialist in Chicago. He's Syrian American and was co-founder of SAMS, the Syrian American Medical Society. He's president of Med Global, which helps during medical disasters in 14 countries. He's a co-winner of the Gandhi Peace Award this year with White Helmet leader Maysoon al-Misri. The ceremony will be on Zoom on November 21st. In this brief interview, we're going to talk about the problem of COVID-19 right now in Syria. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Stanley. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk first about Idlib, the area in the northwest, crowded with people who have fled from areas conquered by Assad and Russia. How bad is the situation with COVID there?
It's catastrophic, Stanley. So Idlib, for people who do not know, is a province in northwest of Syria. It has a population of 4.2 million people. If you include also a small strip of territories controlled by Turkey near Idlib, north of Aleppo. Half of the population have been displaced from other parts of Syria. Some of them, or most of them, 7-8 times before they ended up in Idlib. These are people or civilians who never imagined that they will live again under the control of the Assad regime that bombed them, bombed their schools and hospitals, tortured them, and they ended up in Idlib. According to Human Rights Watch, this year, 2020, 1.4 million people were displaced in Idlib province itself, inside Idlib. It is landlocked, it borders Turkey. Turkey is not allowing any refugees, more refugees, Syrian refugees, to get into Turkey. There's 3.5 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. The situation, medical situation, is horrible because there's a huge shortage of healthcare providers, of hospitals, of ICU beds, of ventilators. COVID have been ravaging Idlib in the last couple of months, unfortunately, and it's getting really worse. And the healthcare system in whole Idlib is near collapse. Add to that the fact that 1.2 million people in Idlib live within tents, within camps, about 1,250 camps. Official camps and non-official camps are in Idlib. People who are living in tents, in camps, it's very difficult for them to practice social distancing, to even have access to clean water and soap or masks. So the situation is a recipe for even more catastrophic consequences.
Now, Assad bombed so many medical facilities. What exists? Are there hospitals or clinics?
There are both hospitals and clinics. I was in Idlib in January of this year, right after the last Syrian regime and Russian bombing of south of Idlib that led to this new wave of displacement. Visited some of the hospitals. There are about 40 plus hospitals actually in Idlib, but there's shortage of PPEs, of doctors, of nurses. People live under the threat of being bombed anytime. Just a couple of days ago, 3 humanitarians were killed in the city of Ariha because of bombing by the Syrian regime. And in addition to that, add to the fact that they don't have access to PPEs for protection from COVID. They don't have enough testing. They cannot even have contact tracing because of the low capacity and the shortage. So it's a really terrible situation. 70 hospitals and clinics were bombed in the last wave of bombing by the Assad regime and Russia in Idlib province itself.
Do Med Global and SAMS help out in Idlib?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there are many NGOs that are working in Idlib, including Med Global, of course, SAMS, USAM, SEMA, and many others who are providing humanitarian assistance and also medical care. We provide, for example, Med Global, we provided oxygen, which is crucial for the treatment of patients with COVID pneumonia. Most of these patients who have severe COVID end up in the hospital requiring oxygen. There is shortage of oxygen, so people cannot afford even to buy oxygens. There's shortage of oxygen in the hospitals itself. So we helped to establish 2 large oxygen generators in the city of Idlib city, which is the capital of Idlib, and also in Darkush. So for free, of course, to make it easy for patients with COVID to get oxygen.
Now, if we could, I'd like to talk briefly about a corner of Syria that few people know about, Al-Rukban. It's a remote area of Syria near the Jordan and the Iraqi border. Some 10,000 people are still living there in miserable conditions, just miles from a US military base in Syria. So, do you know anything about the situation of COVID in Al-Rukban?
I mean, a Rukban camp is something that not many people know, and I'm happy that you asked me about it. This is a camp that has, at one point, it had about 40,000, 50,000 people. It is at the border of Jordan, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq, very close to the Iraqi border. Jordan is not allowing people in the camp to cross to the Jordanian border. People in the camp do not believe that they will be welcomed if they went back to the Syrian controlled areas. Many of them will be tortured and end up in the dungeons of Assad. And the medical situation, humanitarian situation is horrible. As you mentioned, it's very close to an American-controlled base in Al Tanaf, which is a couple of miles away from the camp. But in spite of that, there is no consistent access to humanitarian assistance. There's no clinic that is manned by physicians. There's no physicians there. So no one knows really what's going on. Not only COVID would be a problem, but simple medical conditions like hypertension and diabetes, women who will need, who will need delivery if they have babies, there's no access to midwives or hospitals. So every time you have a pregnant woman end up with catastrophe, or they have to deliver under very primitive situation. And we've been asking our government here to provide consistent access for humanitarian and medical relief to the camp of Al-Rukban without much success at this point.
Now to the parts of Syria controlled by Assad, Russia, and Iran. The public face is that there aren't too many people who have gotten COVID or died from it. But what do you know of the situation in that area?
I mean, if you believe the official numbers, it's funny. There's only 5,500 people who got COVID in government-controlled Syria, and only 300 or 298 died until today. If you talk to doctors, if you talk to people, they tell you that every family lost someone or knows someone who died of COVID. So the situation is, first of all, it's catastrophic, of course, and this is an understatement. But also, it's interesting that the World Health Organization, that has offices in Damascus, is not providing the real numbers, or pressuring the Syrian regime to provide the real numbers. Last time I checked, they were providing the Syrian government 300 tests a day, 300 tests a day. And compare that to Lebanon, which is just nearby and has a population, quarter of the population of Syria, and they were doing 15,000 tests a day. Jordan was doing 16,000 tests a day, which is south of Syria, has half of the population. So you're not going to diagnose most of the people if you're doing only these limited number of testing. They have access to tests. It's not that they don't have access to tests, but for some reason they chose not to. Maybe because they want to give the impression, the Syrian government, that things are under control. Everyone knows that things are not under control, and when it comes to COVID, there's a huge shortage of testing, there's a huge shortage of medications, of hospital beds, of ICU beds, of ventilators, of oxygen, the same way that in Idlib. And my organization, Mid Global, have been working with local NGOs in cities like Damascus and Homs and Aleppo and Hama and Latakia and others, to provide oxygen treatment and ventilators to the patients who are suffocating because of severe COVID pneumonia, who do not have the means to pay for their oxygen or ventilators, who end up at home actually being treated because there's no enough capacities in the hospital. So the situation is out of control in Syria.
Well, it's grim news, but it's good that the truth is out there. I want to thank you for this interview, and we'll see you in just a little over 2 weeks at the much deserved Gandhi Peace Award ceremony.
Thank you, Stanley. I'm very humbled to be chosen for this award. I do not deserve it myself. People on the front line in Syria, the doctors and the nurses and the midwives, are the ones who deserve it, especially the families of the doctors and the nurses who lost their lives while trying to save lives. People like Dr. Hassan Al-Araj, who was killed while he's in the hospital treating patients in north of Hama, Dr. Majid Bari, other physicians, 950 doctors and nurses were killed in Syria while in duty. These are the people who deserve the award, but I'm humbled and honored to receive it on their behalf.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Register on Zoom for the 1 p.m. Eastern, November 21st webinar, which will be the ceremony honoring the Gandhi Peace Award honorees, Dr. Sahloul and Maysoon al-Misri of the White Helmets, who is being given refuge in Canada. We go to Palestine, Israel, for this report on an Israeli woman named Halal Rabin, who has been jailed repeatedly for refusing to take part in an occupation army.
איחולי מוות, סרטן, שלחו אותי לעזה כמה פעמים. זה מפחיד לפעמים, זה לא נעים לשמוע שבן אדם מאחל לי מוות כשאני שואפת לחיים, בוחרת לקדש את החיים ולא לקדש את המוות, בוחרת באהבה ובשלום. אני הלל רבין, בת 19, מהיישוב הרדוף שבצפון, ובחרתי לסרב להתגייס לצבא מטעמי מצפון ופציפיזם. עשיתי את המהלך הזה אחרי שקיבלתי תשובה שלילית מוועדת מצפון, בהתאם לתפיסת עולמי והאידיאולוגיה שלי וצו מצפוני. אני מתנגדת למהות של צבא, כל צבא שהוא, ולמהות של לחימה, כל לחימה שהיא, בכל מקום, בכל מצב. והעובדה שאנחנו חיים במציאות של כיבוש שטחים ומצור על עזה, ואפליה מזעזעת, מחזקת את ההחלטה הזאת ואת העמדה הזאת שלזה אני לא תורמת. כי הצבא הוא כפוף למדיניות הזאת שמדכאת ומפלה וכובשת ודורסת. עם. אני לא מבטלת את הכרחיותו של הצבא במציאות הזאת. אני לא תמימה, אני יודעת מה קורה ואני יודעת שאנחנו נמצאים במציאות מאוד מאוד קשה מבחינה ביטחונית, ואת זה בדיוק אני באה לשנות. אני אומרת, על אלימות אי אפשר לענות באלימות. אלימות לא פותרת אלימות. אחרי שישבתי פעמיים בכלא וראיתי שהתהליך לא עומד להיות קצר, אלא ממשיך וממשיך, אז החלטתי והבנתי שאין כרגע סיבה שאני לא אצא לתקשורת, ושאם חשיפה יכולה להגיע ולהראות לעוד נערים ונערות שנמצאים בשלבים האלה המלחיצים שלפני גיוס, והם פוגשים את הדילמות האלה בתוכם, והמעשה הקטן שלי יכול להאיר להם את הפינות האלה, אז בשמחה ובאהבה, ואני ממש לוקחת את זה על עצמי. אבא היה מת"ק, מפקד טנק, אמא שלי הייתה קצינת מבצעים באינתיפאדה הראשונה. הם בחרו לשרת את המדינה ואת הביטחון כמו שהם ראו לנכון באותו רגע. המציאות היא כבר לא אותה מציאות, עברו מאז שנים. הם למדו כמה דברים, אני לא חושבת שהם היו מתגייסים היום לתרום למציאות שאנחנו חיים בה. והם גידלו אותי לבחור בחופשיות, לחקור, לא ללכת תמיד במסלול המובנה. כנראה הצליח להם אם זה מה שאני עושה. אנחנו בית פתוח, מודע, אמא שלי היא מורה לאזרחות, ככה שמגיל מאוד צעיר הייתי חשופה לחדשות, לבעיות, למלחמות, לקונפליקטים שאנחנו חיים בהם, וזה נורא עניין אותי, זה משך אותי, זה הכעיס אותי, זה הפחיד אותי, וזה גרם לי ללמוד על זה, עם הרבה תשוקה ורצון ונכונות, להבין על מה נלחמים פה. למדתי בבית ספר הרדוף, זה בית ספר אנתרופוסופי, הוא מאוד פתוח, ולמדו איתי תלמידים ערבים בבית ספר, שמבחינתי עוד פעם זה לא היה מוזר. כשאני מכירה באופן אישי בן אדם, ואני אוהבת אותו, ויש חברות וכבוד, ואני יודעת שיכול להיות שהמשפחה שלו יושבת בגדה או במשולש, והם סובלים יום יום מדיכוי ואלימות ואפליה באמת לא מוצדקת. אז כן, כמובן, זה מעמיק את ההבנה הזאת וההחלטה הזאת שלמציאות כזאת אני לא מוכנה לתרום. מאוד חשוב לי לתרום ולתת לחברה, אני באמת רואה בזה ערך עליון. מצד שני, אני לא יכולה ללכת לעשות שירות לאומי כמו שאני רוצה, לפני שאני מקבלת פטור מלא ורשמי מהצבא. זאת אומרת, גם אם אני ממש רוצה עכשיו ללכת ולעשות שירות לאומי, אני לא יכולה. כי מה שעומד בדרך זה באמת חוק גיוס חובה.
Nice to see this in the United States. It's an effort mounted by if not now and never again action. A recent poll reported on in, of all places, the Jerusalem Post said that the popularity of the Prime Minister of Israel among U.S. Jews has plummeted. The Post reported, the poll also found that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seen highly unfavorably among American Jews. His favorability is rated at -30, a steep fall from +30 in 2014 and +12 in 2016.
What normal is.
Now, efforts to defend democracy and make every vote count. This from New Haven.
For us to really, truly embody what Black Lives Matter means. For you to humanize me like you seek for me to humanize you. And if this election does nothing, please, let us.
Here in New Haven, in the Fair Haven neighborhood, there will be a rally at 5 o'clock on the corner of Grand Avenue and Ferry Street. And that's the night before Election Day.
I'm Alex Kolokotronis from Democratic Socialists of America, and today we're standing in solidarity with unions, community organizations, many groups saying that we need to stand in solidarity and with each other and call on the country to ensure that every vote is counted. So we're out here today for that, but as Democratic Socialists of America, we're also calling on really ensuring that our democracy doesn't fall apart. Right now, it's hanging on a thread, and the way we go beyond simply our democracy hanging on a thread and really building it is by asserting that housing is a human right, that a job is a human right, that Black Lives Matter, that we address the climate crisis through a Green New Deal. And we're working on all of this. We talked about this today. We're going to keep talking about it moving forward, and we're going to act on it moving forward.
Abdul, so tell us what happened today and why people came out.
Alright, well, this event really started out as a, more general idea that we knew our democracy really is under attack with a president that really doesn't have respect for our democratic institutions. So we had a, event planned just, to demand that all the votes be counted. Because as we've seen, as we saw last night, we have a president that is not ready to really accept defeat under democratic circumstances, and it's our priority that all us interest groups and individuals come here as a whole, ready to, make sure that our democracy, continues and we count every vote.
About how many groups were sponsoring this?
Several groups. We had DSA, Haven and Action Now, the Working Families Party, DSA, ULA, Unidad and Latino, and a couple other groups.
Wednesday, activist Linda Sarsour spoke at a protest outside the New York Public Library.
Today, we demand that every vote is counted. Tomorrow, we organize and we fight regardless of who goes to the White House.
Note, Linda Sarsour is the dynamic Palestinian American and Muslim leader who will be introducing Dr. Sahloul at the Gandhi Peace Award. After 10 months of investigation, there's still no decision on whether to put on trial the state trooper who shot Mubarak Soleiman to death in West Haven. This protest is planned for Middletown, outside the office of a state's attorney. Finally, someone posted this inspiring video from Chile on Facebook. We often hear the slogan, El Pueblo Unido Jamas Sera Vencido. The people united will never be defeated. It was invented some 50 years ago in Chile, but after the coup by the fascists, it was banned. Last year, people proudly took it up with this orchestra. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. Remember, stay safe, but stay active. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.